The most thrilling, spine-tingling series ever.
From the pages of R.L. Stein's best-selling books,
And the screams go on forever and ever.
We now return to Goosebumps.
Greetings, Goosebumps fans, young and old, big and small, living dead and undead. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas, and I'm joined by my good buddies, Bjorn Pelanik and Nick Shaw. We are the Goosebumps Crew, and we're back to talk some Goosebumps. If this is your first time joining us here on the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, I want to sincerely welcome you all. If you are or have ever been a fan of the Goosebumps series of books and the franchise that it spawned, then I have a feeling that this podcast is going to be right up your alley, because as I always say, me, Bjorn, and Nick are some of the biggest Goosebumps nerds on the planet. We could talk about Goosebumps for hours on end, and that's exactly what we do here on this podcast. Every week we have a brand new episode talking about all Goosebumps topics, whether it be from the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, whatever it is. If it has Goosebumps in the name, we're probably going to talk about it until our bones turn to paste. So if you end up liking today's episode, make sure you leave a like and comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification to get updates when new episodes go live. You can also, check out some of our past episodes. If you want to get episodes a day before they go up on YouTube, the audio platforms are where they're at. They go up a day prior to the YouTube versions over there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And of course, you can follow the Goosebumps Crew over on social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. You can also follow Bjorn and Nick at Goosebumps Aussie Fan and Sean, respectively, on their social medias and YouTubes. They really do deserve it. So check them out. All those links are in the description below. We thank you guys in advance for your support. Now, we have a bit of an interesting topic for today's episode. But before we get into it, I want to introduce our guest for today, and that is...
Hi, I'm Daniel Montgomery.
Hi, I'm Matthew Scott Montgomery.
We are the Terror Twins. We host the Goosebumps podcast. Welcome to Deadcast.
We are so excited to be here. I love this podcast so much, and I'm like geeking out about the fact that I feel like I'm at the cool table at lunch.
Yes, I feel exactly.
Hey, that's where we all are at when we do this podcast. We are the cool kids table right here. It's a cool kids club right here. So
actually,
we're very
when we were kids. We were like tried to start. Remember this? Tried to start a club in our neighborhood. And so we like made these flyers and we walked around the neighborhood and we put them in every single mailbox. And then only one kid responded. So just me and Daniel and this kid who was way younger than us. And like I think his mom was like nervous about him coming over to our house because like it was too scary for him or something like that. Anyway, this is the Goosebumps Club that I've always dreamed of.
Yes, thank you for...
This is the Goosebumps Club. I like to think so. This is Goosebumps Crew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, rebrand. Channel rebrand.
The Goosebumps Club. The Cool Kids Goosebumps Club. That's the new name of the podcast.
Club. AKA.
But we're very happy to have you both here today. It's an honor to have you guys on. So thank you guys for joining us. Welcome to the Goosebumps Crew.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And really quick, I might as well bring this up. It's funny that you guys brought up wanting to start a Goosebumps club when you guys were younger. I didn't want to start a club, but I always felt, because I used to live on a street with a bunch of other kids, and they all read Goosebumps to an extent. They all had like their own little like Goosebumps stacks, but none of them were the fans like I was. So I probably drove people nuts talking about it all the time. Just want to be like, hey, I want to talk about Goosebumps. It's like... And I just remember my Slappy puppet that's right up there. I don't know if you guys can see him. He's sitting in the corner of the window. I used to show him off all the time to these kids, and they were all freaked out of him. So I would always be like, hey, look, it's Slappy. And they're like, ugh.
Like, what's wrong with you, man?
I think I was told that a few times.
For us, you would have been the coolest kid on the street. That's right.
Oh, yeah. like you guys said, this is the Goosebumps Club that I've always wanted too. So you get to all those years of repressed Goosebumps, fandom inside me is just
that's real
coming out into the open right now. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you guys are joining us today. And as I said, we got an interesting episode topic. We always talk about, Goosebumps, the TV show. I mean, it was a great TV show. It's classic. It's a cult classic. And anybody who's a Goosebumps fan knows about the TV show. Some people honestly know about the show more than the books. I've certainly known some people who, are more familiar with the 90s show than they are with the books, which is understandable. But one thing that we want to talk about today is how scary Goosebumps was, especially for kids. I mean, Goosebumps was not like, rated R, like horrifying scary, like people are getting stabbed in the stomach or something like that. It wasn't Tales from the Crypt. But Goosebumps did have scary moments growing up. I think everybody can attest to that. Like there was at least one episode of Goosebumps that like gave them nightmares or made them have to sleep with the hallway light on for a year or something like that. So we're going to talk exactly about that today, about scariest episodes of Goosebumps. But we're going to list off what we think, each of us, are the scariest episodes of the original Goosebumps TV series. So we're going to list off our top 5 scariest episodes. Each of us is going to go around and we're going to list off our top 5 and say why they scared us. If anybody else we knew was scared by them and what exactly about them gave us nightmares as a kid. But before we get into that, we might as well give off some honorable mentions. So this doesn't have to necessarily be full episodes, though it could. But this is just kind of like stuff that didn't make our list, but certainly gave us a scare, for lack of a better term. But starting off with me, I have 2 moments from Goosebumps episodes that I don't think overall are very scary, but they really scared me as a kid. Both of them, funny enough, tie back to that Cartoon Network promo that I always talk about. Like, a lot of me, you guys know what I'm talking about. And that one, it's funny because those promos made the show look a lot scarier than it really was, in a sense. But my 2 moments, the first one is from You Can't Scare Me. It just the mud monster as a whole. Like I just thought that was one of the scariest creatures, especially the sounds coming from him, because it wasn't like the like the monster grrr. It was like it was like bellowing like roars from this thing.
How did that go?
I like that.
Horrifying.
But it's a lot scarier than I'm making it sound. But the beginning, like that cold open where like the grandpa like gets pulled in and then chases after the little girl, that's terrifying. The chase at the end when he's chasing I believe it was Hat, like he finds him and he's like he just starts chasing him and it's just like it's almost like I think I equated it to like a gorilla chasing after you because it sounds exactly like that. But I just remember that just got my heart racing as a kid because I'm like, oh God, don't let it catch you. Is like, that thing is terrifying. But what do you guys think about that one? Did that episode ever scare you?
It's funny, but the cold open is what I think of as being so frightening because of like the little girl and the grandpa, and she's like, Grandpa! And that like whole thing happens at the top where that part is bone chilling to me. And I love You Can't Scare Me. It is like, I remember with that one, like book and TV episode, I kind of feel like you're just waiting for the mud monster the whole time. I mean, like the Courtney stuff is fun, but like, give me the goods, give me the monsters. Always what I feel like I'm waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we actually talked about that episode a few episodes ago, and I believe we mentioned it, but it's like that's actually an episode that while it has a great monster, it doesn't really focus on the supernatural element that much. It's actually more about like just the kids trying to get one over on Courtney. The monster is just like, the last resort, the thing that is building up to at the end. But it's a scary monster. It really is.
It's clear, like classic Goosebumps monster.
Yes.
That would always we had that toy that was
this little rubber mud monster toy that was
the little hand puppet
with your hand in it.
Freaky face? The freaky face one?
Yeah.
I think it was the freaky face.
Yeah. I just loved that. Loved it.
And I also love that the monster in the book, in the episode, even though it was like kind of a gray color, it looked like Tim Jacobus's mud monster.
It looked like the cover of the book, yeah.
You know?
It did.
It's a really
Yeah.
cover. Again, colors are different, but still that like...
It had that
I would
look
say,
of, the actual design.
Yeah.
I would say that the Mud Monster and the Masked Mutant are like the two monsters from the TV show that looked a lot like the Tim Jacobus art.
Yeah.
Everything else sort of had like its own spin to it, but those two look pretty faithful. There's even a part in that episode where I think Kat draws a picture.
Oh yeah.
With the Mud Monster, and it looks almost exactly like the Tim Jacobus art, just the posing of like the hand like up here, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And my second honorable mention goes to Don't Wake Mummy, specifically the first scene where the mummy rises, because I forget the main character's name, but he's locked in the basement. His sister's being a bitch, and he's locking him in the basement. It's just like, oh, you're trapped down there with the mummy. What are you gonna do? And then the mummy like sits up and then just like
That one is scary.
Slowly turns back.
freaks me the hell out. Like
Every time I watch that episode, I feel like it's better than I remember. Every time I'm like, this is a pretty good one.
I gotta rewatch it.
I think it's the best of the two Mummy episodes, because I'm not the big fan of Return of the Mummy, but Don't Wake Mummy I think is a good underrated episode.
It was. He was just creepy in itself. The design of the actual mummy was terrifying, especially even just the scene where they open the coffin for the first time and he's just laying there. That freaked me out. Just that moment right there, you know?
Well, isn't it just the idea of not just a mummy, but just any monster just living in your basement or just being in your vicinity? Like there's nothing stopping it from like coming upstairs and like getting you.
As opposed to like being in the pyramids, you're like, that seems far away. Like I can't identify with that.
I remember.
Yeah.
In your house, living in your basement.
Well, the shot of like the mom going for the stairs and then it just cuts to the mummy, like that far shot of the mummy coming up the stairs and be like,
yeah, that's really frightening. I think of the mummy cat. That's the first thing.
Oh, the mummy cat.
Oh, damn. That's a great Goosebumps ending right there, is the mummy cat at the end. Oh, I love that. But yeah, I mean, I really like that episode. But that moment in particular really scared the hell out of me as a kid. So that's why it's one of my honorable mentions. Bjorn, what about you? Do you have an honorable mention?
I do. I'm going to start with Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. We all know this scene.
Yeah, we do.
The dream scene in that the creepy old people's house when they go up the stairs. And if I'm not mistaken, someone told me that scene wasn't actually on TV. It was cut, but it got released later.
I think it was in Canada?
When it was on Fox, it aired in the US. And then when it re-aired on Jetix, do you guys know Jetix?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
That's a deep cut right there.
For Jetix.
Yeah, they cut that scene out. Yeah,
it just cuts right to Drew just waking up and saying, it's just a dream. It's just a really bad dream, but you never saw what the dream was.
Yeah, it's like, what dream?
She just wakes up from a dream and you're like, what happened?
It was horrifying. It was, you know what it was? It was disturbingly weird for a kid's show. Like that freaking ogre guy who's like, I just love your costumes.
Sort of like,
and you're just like, that's so freaking weird.
Maybe that's where my trypophobia was born, was just seeing the stuff on that guy's face.
It's so gross and scary.
Yeah.
It's mentioned this on another.
I love it.
But the bumps on his face remind me of, I can't remember who said it on this very podcast, but it reminds me of the shopkeeper in Haunted Mask, like the same sort of like face.
A little bit, yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Maybe he's wearing an unloved one.
Maybe the shopkeeper just really let himself go and had a weird affection towards children. Who knows?
Shorter and fatter.
Not a tall, thin man anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
ended up having a stroke, I guess.
Maybe it was a little nod to that.
Yeah.
No, that's 100% an honorable mention. But like the whole episode doesn't scare me, but that scene did, and for good reason. I mean, it traumatized a lot of kids, so But it's great when they released it on DVD, though. They at least put that back in, so you can enjoy it to its full capacity as much as you want. But yeah, that's definitely the number one honorable mention. But number two would be The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. The whole episode didn't freak me out, but definitely, again, the nightmare scene. Like,
yes.
Freaky.
The grandparents.
The grandparents.
Oh, with the grandparents. Yeah, it was, it was just like, it felt so like out of place in a sense, but it was, I don't know, like it freaked me out. And I remember watching that one with the family when I was very young, because we had like all the Goosebumps like on like discs, like before you could buy them on DVD, and they just had like the burnt copies like that were ripped from TV. And I remember my mom even saying, "This is really scary. Why are you watching this?" But it was that scene, and it was terrifying. Honestly, like it literally was nightmare fuel, and it was a nightmare sequence. So it's very fitting for how it made me feel, and a lot of others have pointed that scene out as just being truly terrifying. So
yours are nightmare sequences.
Yeah, something about Goosebumps and nightmare sequences.
Something about them, they were like, "Hey, let's make this really scary." I don't know.
Well, it's because it's a dream. You can essentially do whatever you want. You want to put the kids in peril? That's fine. It's a dream.
Yeah. Truly good.
Really quick, you guys brought up like the fact that stuff was cut out, but it makes for like a really weird cut. That almost reminds me of I don't remember where I saw it on Twitter. It was a friend of mine. But there was a cut. I don't know what channel it is that shows Simpsons, where he lives. But apparently there was a cut for one of the Treehouse of Horrors. Like there's a scene where Krusty falls into a wood chipper and just gets like grinded into a bloody mess. But that version of the episode that aired on TV was cut. So it almost looks like Krusty just bounces on the trampoline and then just cuts to the next scene, and apparently he's dead. So it's like, how did that happen?
Holy crap.
It's so weird. Yeah, maybe the trampoline broke his neck or something. It was like, how did he die?
Hey. Yeah. Trampolines are dangerous.
Honestly, that scene was kind of messed up, though. To be honest, I'm surprised it aired on TV at all, because
dark.
It ends with Homer like performing CPR on Krusty's exposed heart, so it's like really fucked up. But it's messed up. I don't know how I was able to watch that stuff as a kid.
We were both stronger.
Nick, what do you got?
Generations. Oh man, well, in the same vein of honorable mention with Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns, I always thought the twist at the end where they actually ate the adults. They actually killed these people and ate them. I thought for a kids show was pretty messed up. So honorable mention there. They weren't scary as aliens. I mean, they look like Earthworm Jim, but green. So that was kind of weird. But I mean, I still enjoyed the episode as a whole. And it's not in my top 5 as the scariest because I love the episode too much and I always wanted to wear the mask Carly Beth ended up getting rid of. But actually, the scene where she's in there with the shopkeeper and she's trying to get it off, that scream in the mirror, was like blood curdling. Like I will say that's an honorable mention because just the whole look, the scream, the terrified look on her face when he's telling her, "This is your face now." To her and probably a lot of other people, that would freak them the hell out. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm going to look like this forever. To me, I was like, well, that'd be so cool. But, yeah. So those are my 2.
Well, and there's a whole story about how there was supposed to be an ending scene for Haunted Mask where she screams at seeing her brother with the mask on, but the network thought it was too scary, so they cut it. Which I think Catherine herself even
confirmed that she did that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, what could have been?
I wish I could see it. We'll never see it though. It's locked away forever.
Yeah, it's true.
Dan, Matt, what about you guys?
So my honorable mention is I think it's one of the scariest moments in the whole series.
Can I pause, Dan, really quick? We don't know what each other's answers are for today. We haven't conferred at all about what our top 5 scariest.
We talked about it last week and we're like, let's not tell each other. So
I thought it'd be more fun on the podcast to like in the moment see what we have.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I have an honorable mention. I'm wondering. I have a feeling it's yours, Daniel.
Do you want to say it on the count of 3 and see if
the episode name?
Episode?
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. My best friend is invisible.
That is a good one. I know what you're talking about.
I knew it. I had a feeling.
I mean, the end of My Best Friend is Visible is so scary. The reveal that there are eyes and teeth in the back of the heads of the parents, and then are the protagonist, and that they've been aliens, of course, or whatever it is. I just think that image is so I think it's one of the most disturbing things. And the episode itself is fine.
It's kind of a dud of an episode, and then the last 30 seconds, it's like the most bone-chilling stuff.
Yeah. Just those teeth in the eye. Right. Like, I think it's some of the scariest imagery in the entire series.
I agree.
And I'm sure it ruined a couple children's lives.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's otherworldly. It looks very otherworldly,
bills.
which is what makes it scary. It's kind of like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Do you remember King Ramses' curse?
Too scary.
The like animation on him looked otherworldly, like it didn't fit in with Courage itself, the show, and that's what made it so unsettling. And
I think just the thing about superimposing like facial features on something that isn't a human face is really just unnerving. But the way that Goosebumps 90s effects can be cheesy, but honestly, in many ways, it made those moments scarier because of how uncanny it was. And that was one of those moments. That's one of my favorite Goosebumps endings right there is My Best Friend's Invisible. Because you're right, the whole episode is it's not memorable enough, but that 30 seconds.
So it just looks so wrong. That's like, it's just like
it looks low budget, and it looks just like it feels like a bad dream.
Feels like a bad dream. Yeah.
Well, and it's not only that too, but it's just their demeanor, how it changes, because they're like, we did it to help you, to save you, and then they're like they're smiling.
Slam cut to credits. Like
the shadows and like that the dad's laugh, like the
it's so scary.
Oh
yeah, that's
same things scare you that scare me. Like weird stuff like that scares me as well. So yeah, we share that same kind of fear.
It wasn't enough for me to put it in the top 5, but it was. But I considered it actually. I was like, this moment feels scary enough that like could I? Yeah, but it didn't feel like
same.
Yeah, understood. Like I said, I totally agree. Well, now that we got honorable mentions out of the way, it's time to jump into our top 5. So, starting out with my number 5 pick. Honestly, we've talked about it quite a bit already, but I'm going to be honest. I think Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns is scary. I really do. And I'm going to say why, because there's something about the eerie nature of this episode and also the real life implications of it all. Because this episode deals a lot with just the idea of like just being whisked away like by something or someone. It talks about like abduction, like 4 people are missing, and then we find out what happened to them later, which is way more sinister. But it just has this unnerving feeling. And then when the jack-o'-lanterns show up and it's like, we're gonna take you to a better place where you can trick or treat forever, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. Like as kids you're told that and you're like, yeah, let's do it, come on. But there's like a lot of, you know what I mean, like there's a lot of very unnerving undertones with it, and then it's like, we are gonna hold you here forever, like you're just gonna do this forever and ever and ever.
Lots more houses.
Something very unsettling about it. It feels like they've stepped into like hell in a sense. Like they've literally they've gone through this forest, and it's like Blair Witch. They've gone through the forest, and now they're like trapped in this place.
It's like an alternate dimension almost.
You know what I mean? And it's like they're not even, it's like they're not on Earth anymore. Like they're in a completely different realm somehow, and I think that's what makes it kind of weird and creepy, and I like it. I agree.
Yeah,
there's the idea of the adult, like it's adults that have gone missing too, and like plump adults, that have been kidnapped and taken, and it's such a like especially like nasty sort of weird detail that
that's my favorite episode to show people who like especially like Gen Z or like people who don't really know Goosebumps very well. And if I show them one episode, usually around October, people hit Daniel and I up and are like, what's something spooky we can do? Tell us something scary you like. And it always comes to like, we watch stuff, and I always show them Attack of the Jack-O'-Lanterns because it's so bonkers, and like there's equal parts camp and genuinely terrifying stuff mixed in. So it's just like the most entertaining, I think, 22 minutes of the Goosebumps television show because it has a little bit of everything in it. It's like you're kind of laughing, you're kind of screaming, you're disturbed. It has that nightmare sequence.
There's aliens.
It's Halloween.
Right.
I love everything about it.
Weird stuff.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like everybody talks about Haunted Mask 1 and 2. Those are definitively like around Halloween. You'll put those episodes on. But if you ask me, I actually think Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns has more of that atmosphere of Halloween in it. Like every house is decorated. When you get to like the neighborhood that they trick or treat in, and you just see like all the decorations and just all the candy coming in, and it's just dripping in Halloween. Like it really is. It's like the ideal one to put on around October just to get you in the spirit of things. But that's what it scares me too. It's just otherworldly, and it taps into there. Obviously there's no aliens in real life that eat humans, but not to get like
we know of
disturbing on this podcast, but abductions of both adults and kids happen around Halloween time. So it taps into that real world aspect of it. I don't know if it was intentional, but it really does feel that way. So it's just that
it was intentional. It
must have been intentional. Yeah, it had to have been. And you even have the parents being like, I don't know if I want you going out. Like there's like all these reports
of things happening.
Missing. We're worried.
Right.
So, and when you get to that
point, the aliens even like warn them, kind of threaten them in a way, saying don't have too much candy because we'll be back.
Yes.
Like
even their friends
like whoa,
such a dark note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and there's so much unexplained too, because it's like, but all the other adults like giving out candy are also Pumpkinheads. Is that them, or is that like other aliens that they brought down? It's like you never know. It's never explained. And then the reveal that we're just like, oh yeah, we're aliens too, is kind of like brushed past a little bit. Like Drew's just kind of like, yeah, they used to be my next.
They're my best friends.
Yeah, they moved away a little bit ago. It's like
now they're 8 feet tall.
Yeah, are we gonna just brush back the fact that they are like shit-looking aliens? Like they look like
crab claws.
Yeah, with crab claws that shoot lasers out of there. Right? Like honestly, that one guy
flames out of their head.
Yeah,
yeah.
One guy that's Drew's other friend is honestly like the only sensible one, because he's just like, but how did you like what? You shot that laser out of your claw.
Out of your claw.
Yeah.
Walker.
Walker. Yep, that's it. And then, of course, as we already mentioned, you got that ending, and then, of course, that nightmare sequence, which is really creepy. And again,
so
stuff like that happens in real life. People do abduct kids and keep them in their homes. That does happen. So it taps into that. So that's why I personally think that Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns is my number 5 scariest episode, in my opinion.
It made the list. The list.
Bjorn?
Okay, number 5. So I've picked episodes based on what actually gave me legitimate nightmares as a kid.
Love it.
Ones that I actually had nightmares on. And number 5 is Piano Lessons Can Be Murder.
Yes.
That gave me an actual nightmare when I was a kid, to the point where I screamed myself awake. And it's very atmospheric. I love the soundtrack. I love the piano score that Jack Lenz did for that. I think it's just it's beautiful, but it's haunting, and it's creepy all at the same time. I think it's really well done. Any scene at night freaked me out. When he would go down into the basement and just see her there playing the piano and say, stay away, and she's like coming at you.
Yeah.
That's something that you would literally have a nightmare about. And the scene in particular that actually freaked me out was right at the end when Jerry and his mum are actually escaping the Shriek School. Mm-hmm. And she comes flying out right at the screen. That was traumatizing for me as a kid. And I had an actual nightmare of that I screamed myself awake. But then you've got Dr. Shriek himself, who's just creepy and weird, just staring at Jerry the whole time, of course, because of his hands. But there's a lot of things. It's such an underrated Goosebumps episode. I think it's so really well done. And everyone just played their parts well, and it had everything that makes a truly terrifying Goosebumps.
Yeah, killer robots, mad scientists.
I must have your hand.
Beautiful hands. That part was kind of funny to me. It was like hands.
There's a lot to be said.
Oh yeah. The crazy eyes and those crazy face when he was doing it.
Yeah. Like Jeepers Creepers in the second one, where he's looking at can't remember his name, but before he licks the window and he stares at him with those big wide eyes, I'm like, anything like that always freaks me out, and that's why I hate
very scary.
I can't believe I neglected that one. Honestly, that would have made my honorable mentions too. In fact, if I had to do a number 6 spot, I think I would put Piano Lessons Can Be Murder in there because that is a really creepy one. Just the ghost in general, like, is just a really creepy thing. But at the end, when she gets like up in the camera, like flying out,
yes, that moment got me as a kid, and I remember watching it really late at night because when I was watching Goosebumps, obviously in the early 2000s, it was like reruns, and they played it so late. It was like 9:30, and as a 6-year-old, like, that's way past your bedtime. Ooh. So my brother and I watched that, and it was that exact night that I had that nightmare. My mum's like, "You're never watching Goosebumps again," was essentially what she said to me. I'm like, "Are you for real?"
Like, the hell I am.
Never watch it again. But yeah, that episode is just truly, it's terrifying. I love it. It's one of the most underrated Goosebumps episodes for sure.
Good one.
I agree. Good pick. Nick?
Yeah.
Good one. My number 5 is Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes.
Really?
And yes, because don't get me wrong. Like, again, I know I've talked about it before, but none of the Goosebumps episodes ever actually scared me. But I had to look at it as a like different point of view from somebody else. Looking at different episodes, like what would be really terrifying? What's terrifying in this episode? So Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes, I mean, could you imagine if you bought some lawn gnomes to put in your yard, but they came alive at night and they were like super evil, like, and they had sharp teeth. They caused mischief at first, but like they fully intended to kill those children. By the end of that, I mean, to be realistic, and that Major McCall, he's dead. I mean, he got turned into a statue, but I mean, I think it's really creepy. Their voices are really creepy, but it's when they open their eyes, like from the fake ones to the real ones, and then kind of the snarled. It reminds me of Leprechaun.
They look really creepy through the bushes, the eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I do see what you mean.
I think that there's a really good creep factor there, because again, you don't know really what their powers are. They say they're magical. You really don't know till the end what kind of powers they have. I mean, they can clearly turn you into a statue, like they did with Major McCall. But the whole concept I thought was pretty creepy. I mean, ordinary lawn gnomes that you go by, put in your yard, gonna come alive at night, probably kill your children.
Yeah,
it's like,
creepy in the series.
That's kind of messed up.
I can't be the only one that thought this.
That, like, your kid, like any trope, like with these Goosebumps, like we've talked about, like you're a kid, no adult's gonna believe you. So no matter what you tell them, even if it's true, especially something so outlandish like the lawn gnomes came to life, they jacked up that dude's yard. But yeah, it's one of those kind of off the wall stories that you wouldn't think would be scary, but if you really imagine that in real life, I think that would be kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, no, I agree.
I can't be the only one that thought this, but like when he does turn like Major McCall into a lawn gnome, I almost thought when I first saw it that he was gonna like take a bite out of his shoulder, like the way that he was like going, like at least from when you see his reaction, it looks like he's about to like take a chomp out of his shoulder.
Yes, absolutely.
Ugh.
Yeah, that end is the scariest part.
Maybe there's something in there, like saliva or something. You know what I mean? When that maybe he did bite him. And whatever it is turns him into a statue.
The magic transferred somehow through the saliva and turned him in. No, I agree with you. Like,
it's a virus.
Some elements in that. The soundtrack was actually quite creepy in that, especially when Joe was walking around the garden at night, and when he saw the eyes peering through the bushes. I remember that was quite eerie. Actually, that was pretty creepy. Yeah, it was atmospheric, definitely. Yeah, it was creepy. I can see why that would have scared a lot of kids, actually, that episode.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's just kind of the immersion's kind of broken just because I think the lawn gnomes, when they talk, are really funny. Because, like, at first, when they're just kind of like, it's Slappy's voice. Because when they're just walking, when they're not saying anything and they're creeping around, they're creepy. But then when they're like, one of them grabs the camera and it's just like, and then they're like, let's squash them like bugs. It's like, that's what I said. Like it's kind of like, all right, they're kind of funny. So
they were cutesy in the movie. They were definitely more like cute.
Yes, I thought the movie kind of downgraded the lawn gnomes. I thought the ones were way scary.
The movie really downgraded them.
Scariness. They weren't in the movie they weren't scary. They were just like
fun storytelling,
irritating and cute. Yeah. Like, you know, they were like,
yeah, they had like cute little faces. I mean, there was one moment in the entire movie where I was like, oh no, they're dangerous. But they threw the knife directly at Dylan Minette's head, Zach, and just missed him. I'm like, oh, well, they intended to kill him.
Yeah. Oof. But that's a good pick. I honestly, I wouldn't have guessed that, but I see where you're coming from on it.
I think that's in one of my honorable mentions for sure. That would have been in my honorable mentions. If I had to pick a third, I think I probably would have gone Lord Gnomes, actually. Yeah.
I agree. All right. Let's go with Dan. What do you got?
Taurus.
So my fifth is Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns.
Okay.
All the reasons that we've said, like just the bad dream feeling about all of it, the actual bad dream, the people being abducted. There's something too about the very, like, even though the aliens do look sort of silly and are clearly like little hand puppets, it just feels wrong. It just looks so odd and gross, and then the episode's over. I just think there's so many things in that episode that sort of that would scare children to death.
Mm-hmm. And it leaves on that uncomfortable feeling is like, we will be back. It's like, don't fill up too much. So it's like, some friends you are.
And the fact that it is the only episode, as far as we know, that was edited because of it was
being too scary.
Yeah, I was like, it's got to be in my top 5. So that's my fifth. What's yours?
My fifth is Stay Out of the Basement.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a few years ago, well, it was a while ago, I had a roommate and I was watching Stay Out of the Basement, and he was like, well, is this Goosebumps? I was like, yeah. He's like, I've never seen an episode, and he sat and watched all of Stay Out of the Basement with me. And I was so used to that episode because I've watched it so many times. I have it on VHS. I love it so much. And he was like, this episode is horrifying. He's like, the dad's gonna kill the kids. And I was like, I guess it is really scary. And he was like, the more we watched the episode, he's like, you watched this as a kid? I was like, yeah. He was like, this is so horrifying. The fact that you cannot trust your dad, you're calling your mom, and the dad picks up the phone from you, slams it shut, force feeding you stuff. He's kidnapped another doctor, hidden him in the basement. And you have to, you see your dad through the slats, cutting his arm, and there's green ooze coming out of it. You can't trust him. Just the way that he yells, stay out of the basement on that like stormy night in the house. Like in general, a lot of my lists for top 5 scariest are like real world kind of scary, like things that, like, we've talked about it a lot already, but like the idea as a kid, my parent is not, stuck in the house with a parent that's abusive, scary, half monster. You can't trust your dad, and you don't know if your dad is real. Like, that idea in and of itself made me put it as my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
That is freaky. The cutting of the green goo, like gunk coming out of his arm, like that scene, and like even just the way he's kind of breathing, like you know, like that was. And the leaves. Yeah, that was pretty messed up.
Yeah, it's the like body horror aspect of it all. Like that's like. Horror. Yeah, just the fact that something is so inhuman about someone who looks human but clearly isn't. And even just like in the basement, like the plant hand and the plant that opens up and there's a face inside, and that's like,
oh yeah,
it's horrifying.
Yeah, the scene where like she's laying in bed and he just walks in and he's just staring at her, like, you know, so creepy with that soundtrack in the background. Oh my god, no. I agree. That episode is terrifying. That did freak me out a lot.
The thing about children's horror is that a lot of it is derived from what a kid would find scary. Is like, apart from all the supernatural stuff, there's a lot of things that kids are scared of, and like that's a scenario, that you can't trust anyone, especially someone that you should be able to trust no matter what. Like your parents is out to get you. Yeah, a terrifying thought. So
yeah,
I totally agree.
Definitely.
Moving on to my
number. I love to have scientist parents.
He does love scientist parents.
There's a lot of those in Goosebumps.
Oh yes, Professor Shock.
Moving on to my number 4. I have the Headless Ghost. I love ghost stories, And this is an episode that's just like one big ghost story. I love the setting because it's not just a haunted house. It's like a haunted house by the shore. So there's like almost like a nautical aspect to it all, especially in the music. The music is like one of my favorite scores for an episode, is this one. And there's so many scenes in this one. The cold open with Andrew, the boy who gets his head. It's not like, sliced off or anything. His head is torn off by the ghost. That's how you start the episode. And then you have just sort of the eeriness of the house, like going through this dark, empty house with all these creepy paintings on the wall with only a lit candle. The story of the boy with the ice cream and like they're talking about.
I think of that all the time. Strawberry ice cream.
Yeah, the line about like it was hard to tell the difference between the boy's face and the strawberry ice cream.
The way he went to grab it and he just literally just went straight up, and it's almost like he killed himself on purpose. You know what I mean? Like he committed suicide. Like he literally just goes.
Well, it's like this is like one of the only Goosebumps episodes with like legitimate child death in it.
Yes.
Like 2 children like die in this episode. You see how they die. One of them is a murder essentially. So it's pretty messed up. And then you have the ending where everything just hits the fan. Like the whole episode is kind of like slow burn, slow pace. And then right as Otto is revealed to be the sea captain, it's just like, boom. Now you're in hell. And that whole chase, like at the end where he's like chasing after them, he's just like screaming and screaming and screaming, and they're just running down the stairs and just running and running and running. It's your heart is racing watching that because you're just like, don't look back, just run, just friggin' run. And that's another ending that is really eerie because you don't know how much time's passed since then. Because the kids run away, that's the last time you see them. It just cuts to black and then it comes back in. And the house is like dilapidated. It's like boarded up. It looks like it hasn't been used in years. And they're like, oh, we heard the place was haunted. And then you see that the seller is Otto. So you're like, what is he going to do? Like, what is he going to do to these people? So it just leaves you with an uncomfortable feeling as the episode ends. But it's just a great...
That was like a fourth wall break at the end where he's just kind of... It's like he's looking at you.
And
I thought that was a great addition to the end of that. It was just where he's looking at you and then kind of smiles before he goes in. I'm like,
he's like,
okay,
and then closes the door.
No, it's
that's my number
crazy
4.
how many people have told me that the Headless Ghost episode, but also the book, is their favorite. I've met a lot of Goosebumps fans that say the Headless Ghost is just hands down their favorite book, favorite episode. Like, and I'm like, wow, it's crazy, I mean, but people like their ghost stories, so, and I consider that to be one of the best.
Mine does too.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Absolutely. And that's my number 4. Bjorn?
Cool. Well, this one was a bit of a toss-up. What's at 3 and 4? But for 4, so again, I'm going with the episodes that actually gave me nightmares. Number 4 is actually The Haunted Mask. Number 4, because, and it's one scene. Just one scene that gave me nightmares because I hadn't, like, at the end when the masks start levitating off their stands and just start like shooting themselves towards Carly Beth. Oh my God. That was freaky. And when they're just kind of spinning around, be one of us, like, please, Carly Beth. Like, that was so unnerving and creepy and weird that it was just sending off like fireworks in my brain, as a young kid. And yeah, I had nightmares of the masks literally like coming at me, and I couldn't, like, no matter what I did, they wouldn't go away. They just kept coming at me to the point that you literally have to wake up because you're just so scared. And The Haunted Mask, that truly just traumatized me, that scene. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like we said, it's not the whole episode, but that scared me so much, enough that it made the list. Do you know what I mean? Just that one scene. And even just when the shopkeeper tells her, like, run, and you're just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Like, run, I don't even know what the hell's going on
now.
Her trying to block all those locks.
Here's another thing. It didn't only scare me, it scared my brother. It scared anyone that I showed it to. Yeah. That scene. you know, and because it was just so strange. How it was shot looked really weird. You know, it reminded me again, like King Ramses, like how just the way they move. And we found out that actually a lot of the crew members, were the ones that actually wore those masks.
Who actually made those particular masks, got to wear them and be them in the episode.
Yeah. Like that was interesting. How cool is it to get to make your mask and then play it in the episode? Like that's pretty neat.
That's great.
That's right. Yeah. So Haunted Mask is number 4, baby. Like, because that episode, just that scene was enough as a kid to get me. So, yeah.
I get it. Absolutely. Nick?
Completely understand. My number 4 is The Girl Who Cried Monster.
Mm-hmm.
Eugene
a lot of people.
Lipinski's performance was absolutely chilling. It was amazing how, like, he could go from the librarian, who does seem like a simple, unassuming librarian, to a very creepy, like, see, even his monster form, while it's creepy, it's after she finds out that he's a monster that his performance as the librarian changes, because now he's trying to lure her in. And he actually shows up at her house, even though it's not on his way, despite the fact that he says it's on his way. And obviously the ending was pretty stellar, to the point where it's like, you find out the parents are monsters and then they eat him alive. It's like, holy shit. Like, everything about that episode was just pure awesomeness. And if they could make that into an R-rated film, that would have been incredible. Like, because I can imagine what things you could add in there if to tell the story of Mortman being a monster and then coming to town. Did he eat people before he tried to eat Lucy? Like, he just had to switch over because of not being found out? It's like, why can't monsters be in the same town? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, but like, I like that it's very obscure like that. And you kind of have to leave all those to your own imagination, so you can really sit there and kind of play it out as creepily as you want to.
Yeah.
And Mortman was just such a good character. Like, Eugene Lipinski was just perfect for that role.
I would argue that him showing up to her house is like honestly the creepiest part of the episode, because somebody tracking you down and just coming to your house, even if they're not a monster, it's just like, why are you here? Why did you follow me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. The POV shots through the library freaked me out with the blue filter.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And it just felt like endless corridors. Like, it's like, surely she knows how to get out of that library, but I don't know, it was just so dark, and it made it feel like, she was running like through this endless like hallway of just, shelving with books, and I think that's what really added to that too. And the music, the soundtrack to that episode is definitely one of the
amazing,
hands down. Like the chase scene soundtrack, Cricket Lunch from Jack Lenz, that is just perfection.
There's also something about this is one of the few episodes. It's kind of like State of the Basement a little bit, where you see that there's this adult who is the monster essentially, and knows that the kid knows. And, it is that moment showing up to the house where you just feel so unsafe as a kid, that you're like, oh no, the monster knows that I know.
And the parents don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this layer of like, you feel totally helpless, and you see Girl Who Cried Monster, you see like the horrific monster, and then you also see sort of the human being, and both are really scary.
Mm-hmm. Like the human monster.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And that's what always made me wonder, like, at the end of the episode, when Mortman actually does agree to come over, does he intend to like kill the whole family? Like, or is he just trying to figure out what they know, if it's just Lucy still has the secret about him, or like, I kind of wish that would have played it out a little more, because I was really curious. But, it took the twist with the meatballs, and then it was like, oh, what's for dinner? So I was like, oh, snap. So I guess it don't matter now.
What dad happens to like big meatballs.
Yes.
Right?
What a line.
It's making me hungry for
meatballs. That's my number 4.
I like some man-sized meatballs. God, what movie is that from? That line.
Mortman balls.
Just popped straight in my head. Oh, Master of Disguise.
Oh, it's from that movie?
It's like one of the worst movies, but like there's the one line in that movie.
Some man-sized meatballs.
Yeah, remember? Because they make like the really big meatballs in it, and it's just like one big meatball on the plate with spaghetti. You just like chop it up yourself.
I always think Wedding Singer when they talk about meatballs. The old lady.
Old lady.
Yeah.
Maybe in meatballs.
Dan and Matt?
My number 4 is Welcome to Dead House.
Oh,
there's something to me that it's the terror factor ratchets up a little bit when it's an episode that aired prime time, and Welcome to Dead House was one of those that initially aired at night, and it was sort of like a special that adults could watch as well. And I just think there's certain moments within the episode. There's that really tall, spooky, undead girl that appears.
Her fingers, literally, her fingers pushing through when they're in the backyard. And her fingers are pushing through the storm cellar. Yeah.
Oh
God! It's like her fingers really mess me up. There's something so scary about that. And gosh, what's his name? The I Used to Live in Your House guy.
Ray.
Ray.
Ray. Oh.
Like just like him appearing in the hallway, you seeing him at night, him just walking by, and just the unbridled terror of the last like 5 minutes.
I'm hungry.
All these people trying to just eat our main characters. There's a lot about it that I really like, and there's a lot about it that I think. It plays like a great zombie movie, honestly. And we know that we almost got our George Romero version, but it
makes me so sad we never got that.
I just think there's a lot in there that, and it's the first book, and it feels so like classically such a great trope of we're moving to Dark Falls, we're moving to this new house, and there's something wrong with all the kids and everybody that lives there. Great atmosphere. Really spooky settings, some like really over the top performances, but then I don't know, I like this. I think it's all the sad sad undead friends are so creepy, and I just think it's a great scary episode.
I agree.
Fantastic episode. It's creepy as all hell.
Amazing episode.
Very atmospheric, and just the filter.
Enough to scare Scott Maryland's kid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they thought bringing him to set was going to help him conquer his fears. Nope.
And Scott Witwer, even like his moment, like reaching through the fence and Mr. Dawn, it's like when he doesn't like dumb it. There are some like hokey, campy, fun moments, but it doesn't feel the scares don't feel like they're playing like they're being dampened at all for kids. It feels like let's just push it and have these kids running for their actual lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the like breaking of the boards and the window and Karen like curling over and falling. It's like, it's gross and scary, and I love it.
So inhuman.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Matthew, it's your number 4. I love that we're all choosing different ones because I've got maybe as we get to 3, 2, 1, that might be more similar, but
we'll see.
This next one is shout out to Bjorn. This is the one that gave me nightmares as a kid. It really, really, really scared me. It was the one that scared me the most out of any of them, and it was A Night in Terror Tower.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's
love it so much.
Yeah, there's 2 kind of levels of scary to me. One level is I'm in a foreign country and I can't remember where I'm from or my last name.
Very
and
scary.
I don't know who my parents are or where my parents are. That idea, like this kind of like existential crisis idea, that's very frightening to me. And then, I don't know, an executioner chasing me through a torture chamber, trying to behead me, like that. The nightmares that I had were pretty much like I was Eddie or Sue in that, like, I remember having a nightmare where I don't know if it was England, but I was like somewhere else that wasn't the United States. And gosh, remember like when they travel back in time and like that old lady tries to like, she like under the basket or whatever, then gives them away to the...
Spells out Sue.
Honestly, all of it's just so... It's frightening in like a literal way and then like a big picture way that it just really unnerved me. So that's my number 4 is A Night in Terror Tower, right?
Such a great episode.
I'm with you on that. And that's another one that like the whole point is it's not like a haunted mask. It's not a living dummy. It's an actual person, like just a human. So it really could be anyone just trying to kill you. He's coming to kill you. Yeah. He's the Lord High Executioner on top of all that. So he's very adept at killing people.
Your uncle. So it's like finding out you have a family member that wants you dead no matter what is pretty creepy.
Yeah, for a long time that one wasn't. All Goosebumps books and episodes were fun to me except that one. In fact, I wouldn't watch the episode for years and years because it scared me so much. Only the last maybe 10 years I've warmed back up to it. What I used to do is, I talk about this in the podcast, that used to be my folding laundry television episode. So whenever I was folding laundry, I would put that on. So now I have a calming activity with sense memory for it. And so that kind of de-scared it for me in a way, because I was like, oh, that's the laundry episode. Yeah.
The classic laundry.
It's such an iconic classic
laundry
Goosebumps episode. You know, it's like when people think of classic Goosebumps TV show, Night Terror Tower is one of the instant ones you think of. Yeah. And they really pushed, Nick and I have said this how many times, they really pushed that one when it came out on VHS. They really pushed it, really promoted it, hyped it up, and especially even in Australia, because it was actually the first VHS that came out here in Australia. So, they really, really wanted people to love, it was the biggest selling one, followed by The Haunted Mask, kind of as they came out. But yeah, Terror Tower, because I've got a friend, Lauren, who's actually got a page now called That Goosebump Chick, and she even said, every kid in school, every kid had that VHS, that exact one. Because it was when it first came out, it was just big cardboard displays, posters, and the Night in Terror Tower VHS. So it was all parents were like, oh yeah, kids love Goosebumps. So they apparently all bought them. And they showed it at school as well. If you had movie day, they would always put it on Night in Terror Tower. It was a heavily, it was pushed around a lot. So
yeah, absolutely.
And the only one so far, like we talked about, I think that has a behind the scenes kind of featurette, if you will.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
a sneak.
Yeah. Wish there was more. Should have been one for every single VHS tape, at least.
At least, yeah.
Oh, at least there could be some out there. They're just in the vault, we're discovering new things every day that we didn't even know existed. You know what I mean? Especially with the Disney World attraction they had, there's been so much footage of that that's sort of filtered out over the years. It wasn't all at one time. It's we get one clip and then a few years later someone's like, oh, I've got this old clip on a VHS I recorded off the TV. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so slowly we're getting things. It's just, we want more,
Maybe it's a matter of time.
I don't know about the show, because we did get some kind of feedback from Alan and Ron and the other Ron and stuff that said basically they didn't have the budget for that kind of stuff. Night in Terror Tower, I think, was kind of a one-off. That's why everybody basically just has pictures, or if they have any video, they took it themselves. I think Ron Stefanik said he had tons of photos, but I think he said he might also have some video. But it's not like a featurette kind of thing. He just had stuff he filmed himself.
Right.
So, but that's something that's never been seen yet.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it unearths soon, because we got to see that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Moving on to my number 3. My number 3 is going to be Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Yeah. As I said before, eerie stuff gets me because sometimes it's more the buildup than it is the actual scares. This is an episode, and I think it actually is one of the scarier books too, because scarecrows are creepy. Scarecrows are really creepy things. And the idea of being out in the middle of nowhere, you're in a farmland, a house, not another house for miles. So you're isolated, and you're not only isolated, but you're surrounded by these scarecrows, and then they come to life at night and surround the place. You don't even know what they want. They don't even make any noise. They're completely silent. We already talked about the nightmare sequence, which scared the living hell out of me as a kid. But honestly, the thing that, well, I wouldn't say it scared me more, but that was just as scary is when it's raining outside and there's that pan to like the doors and windows and you see the scarecrow like walking.
Yeah, it's so
and it's like trying to open and it's just like doom, 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 like that. Like that's terrifying because it's like trying to get in the.
It looked
you
like
don't
the
even
book
know.
cover one too. That exact scarecrow looked a lot like the book cover when it panned in on the face. I was like, oh, that looks like the Tim Jacobus art. So they sometimes did try to, you know, look at the book and go, hey, we can do this. Like, yeah, no, that was truly.
How about the entire family getting murdered by a thresher at the end of the episode?
Honestly, I think that's a better ending than the book because the book just had like a stuffed bear come to life. I'm like,
no, that's true.
I would say getting run over by a thresher is a lot more scary than that.
Yeah, that ending to this day, I cannot believe that's
the credits come so quickly. It's just like
they have a lot to pack in 22 minutes.
Yeah, that's almost like what they would do on the Haunting Hour, where it's just like horrifying thing, and then just cut the credits. It's like, what? Oh man, and
maybe wanting more.
The ending where like all the scarecrows come to life because they Stanley reads the spell and they bring them all to life, and then they're just running through the cornfield, and then they're just like they could pop up at any moment. Like they could be like in any corn like maze area. They could like trip you. They could just catch you, and then like they're all trapped in the barn and they're just like breaking through the barn doors and like grabbing at sticks and all that. Oh man, but very violent way to kill them too, because they get eaten by the thresher and then they just get like all the straw comes spitting out, which is like, man, if the family at the end really got into that thresher is like
they were gone.
A little bit of a bit messy there.
I've been rewatching that one all week for no reason.
I
found it. There's a YouTube link right now that has like full commercials with it. It's like a 30-minute one off
fun.
of old
Probably yours.
box CD. Is it?
It might be mine.
Is it yours that I've been watching all week?
If it's on the Goosebumps channel, then that's mine. That's me. It all comes back to me.
This week it's me. Hold on. I'm gonna let them see.
Well, and that's the thing too, because
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I do it for you all. But that's an episode I rewatch. I find myself rewatching that one a lot because I just love the aesthetic. Something about just like the farmland and again the isolation of it is a really creepy concept. And yeah, I think the scarecrows along with the mud monster are like some of the creepiest monsters in the Goosebumps TV series. So that's my number 3 pick. It's also one of my favorite episodes of all time in the Goosebumps TV series. So yeah, Scarecrow Likes a Midnight, number 3 for me.
Number 3.
Bjorn?
Okay, my number 3. Of course I have to go with my boy up here, but not this version of my boy up here. Night of the Living Dummy 2. 3 was a well-made episode, and I always point this out, how 3 was the better, like, production and everything. But the thing that always took the scare away from me with number 3 was when it kept transitioning from puppet to person, and I was like, it's so obvious. So I was like, didn't really freak me out. But Night of the Living Dummy 2 was definitely the more creepy, slappy episode. And I think what really got me with that one is there's the scene of it. It's the night scenes again. You know what I mean? And the music that like the soundtrack in that one, the score is super eerie. You know, even just the scene where she's sitting on the bed and she, you know, her sister's telling her like, you know, go to bed, and then she just kind of starts taking Slappy to the chair. That whole sequence is just creepy. And then like how he's just pushes Dennis there, and then he's sitting upright. You know, it's those little things that kind of freaked me out. But the thing that got me the most was the POV shots, where Slappy's just walking through the house. Because literally, it's he walks, he stalks, right? And those scenes are like straight out of the book, you know? And like he just walks into her room and he's just staring at the sister in bed, and then he heads to the painting. But the thing that really got me is especially the scene at night with the guitar. I think that was truly terrifying. The scene where he's just walking along the hallway and you just see the shadow, and it's just awkwardly like walking. So it's like, I want to see him walking, but they never do, because obviously it would have been too hard to make it look realistic, which is why they opted for someone in the mask in the 3rd episode. But Yeah, Nilo and Demi too. I don't know. Like, I think the whole episode kind of freaked me out. But the scene that I've had a lot of people tell me really made them feel uneasy was the part where he's just sort of laughing, but his mouth isn't moving, and he's just sitting up on the bed.
Yeah,
that was creepy.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about that scene that seemed to stick with a lot of people. But yeah, out of all the Slappy episodes, I think Night Living Dummy 2 is definitely the more creepy one. But like we've said this so many times on the channel, we think season 1 particularly was where they really tried to make Goosebumps a lot more scary. Like they still hadn't kind of found the balance. And then season 2, they kind of found more the campy with the horror. But then season 3, they just went full campy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I had to put Slappy on the list. But hey, it's not number 1. You know, a lot of people would think, oh yeah, he's going to put Slappy at number 1. I'm like, no.
Not going to lie, I did. I was like, I bet it's Night of Living Dummy 2.
I knew there was going to be a one Slappy episode, at least one. But I agree. I mean, that episode has a lot of... It's the Slappy episode where Slappy is a little more mysterious, because the other two, he's very much like at the center. He's doing stuff in the background, and you know that. But this one is a lot more like building up to the final, like really reveals like, yes, I'm alive. Like it was me the whole time. But it's definitely more eerie in its tone. It's a little more spooky. So yeah, I totally understand. I totally get that. I agree.
Yeah, a lot of people said they were freaked out of the TV Slappy, and I'm going to say that was probably the episode that they did get freaked out, if I had to go through each of them.
I agree.
So yeah, Night Living Dummy 2 definitely makes the list. And even just the scene where he's like freaking got, you know, like holding that girl's hand so tightly and won't let go, you know, like that's freaky. I mean, in the book, it was definitely creepier the way it was described, how his head just lifted up, spun around, and then just started laughing at all the kids when they were like crying. I think that was definitely a little more dumb, but I don't know if they were going to. Because was that a party in the book?
Yeah, well, in the book, it's like the girl who he's grabbing is like scream crying, like just bawling, and her hand is just turning red. It's like you can just imagine like what that whole scene looks like when you're reading it. In the episode, it's creepy, but it's not as like, holy shit, like what the hell do we do? Like that sort of thing. At least in my opinion.
But dialed it down, but still had that essence of that scene. I think too, like, because it was a birthday party with a lot of kids, like they probably thought, oh, you know, budget, we're gonna pay all these you know, kids. Can we just have it that a friend comes over with the younger daughter, and you know, we'll do that. So, but yeah, no, that episode definitely is number 3 for me.
Nick, what do you got?
My number 3, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
Yes.
So of course, probably, as much as I like Werewolf Skin as an episode, again, this had a very movie theatrical feel to it, and they, to quote some John Hammond, spared no expense. So the whole concept of there's a werewolf, and you always think it's the hermit in the woods at the beginning, and that dude's creepy enough as it is with his fingernails and his crazy matted hair and everything else.
And his chicken eating.
He starts acting like a wolf and everything as a person. So you're like, oh yeah, this dude's definitely it.
Yeah.
But the whole twist reveal, finding out that it's actually his next door neighbor, Will, the whole POV shot, like when they first show the werewolf, like when Grady's sister sees it for the first time, and they kind of do that pan up to just the mouth. They don't even show the whole face, just the mouth and the teeth and the drool and the snarl and the sound. I mean, everything about that, even the soundtrack was amazing. That wasn't Jack Lynn's, but I wish I could get that soundtrack for that episode too.
We need it.
But the POV shot of chasing her, and the fact that like Will can't help himself, and he actually tells Grady this. I don't know, like everything about that episode was phenomenal, but I can see definitely where it would be super scary for a kid to watch, because again, I want to say that was a primetime one, if I remember right. It's been a while. Yeah. So of course you're watching this at night, and man, there's like, it's just such a good episode. I can't say enough good things.
Files of all things,
right? It's the POV shots in the Goosebumps series that they got.
It really is. Like if they're done really right, they are so well done. and that's an episode where it was used very well. I mean, even the look of the werewolf was different than what you normally would see in the movies. Because you're thinking like Lon Chaney Wolfman or maybe The Howling, which obviously that was a very scary version. But this is a different kind of werewolf. You actually saw a bit more of like the muscle tone of the werewolf, and the head was kind of a different shape than a typical werewolf was. So it was a really, really good design for a werewolf, in my opinion, too.
On that halfway point, like when Will's like halfway transformed, and he's just like his face is all deformed, but he like sounds himself, but he's just like like that sort of thing.
That's another one where they technically killed a kid in an episode.
Sure. Yeah, kid and the hermit.
Yeah,
and the hermit was kid too.
Yeah, this is a situation where the book was a little less extreme than the episode was.
That's right. That jump scare at the end, that's also another bad dream. It is a bad dream where like the parents.
Yeah, another dream sequence. I didn't even think about that.
Like that one.
With that
haunted
mask skateboard. Do you think that haunted mask skateboard was an actual Goosebump product, or do you think that was slapped on a skateboard? Because you know how they always showed real Goosebump products in the show. I want to know.
I'd like to believe it was just slapped onto something, because if it was real, then I need it. I don't ride a skateboard, but
Same.
You would need that exact skateboard on the wall on display. But the only thing this episode was missing, Nick, was our good buddy Arjun.
That's why Werewolf Skin has one up on it.
Guys.
They like my blood.
I love him so much. Oh, we tried to get him on the podcast.
Arjun was the werewolf in this episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, Will, I'm a werewolf.
Yeah. Now I'm all harried. What if he was
funny about that guy, man?
What if even when he is a werewolf, he still talks like that? He's like, oh, now I'm a werewolf and stuff.
Like I was at a toy fair, and someone recognized me and was like, oh, we watch your podcast and I've been watching you for years, and I see you at these things. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he said, oh, you should try and get that guy on from the Werewolf Skin episode. And I was like, oh, like Alex, like the main kid? And he's like, no, the funny guy with the glasses and the curly hair. And I'm like, why? And he's like, oh, he's so funny. And then one of my best friends, Logan, his favorite episode is Werewolf Skin, and he loves that character. I'm like, God damn it, people want Arjun on the podcast.
I want Arjun on.
I know. And Larry from Camp Nightmare. We got to get Larry.
Maybe that's what our podcast name should have been, was the Arjun Fan Club.
The Arjun Crew. We got Arjun and Larry both on the same episode. Just
call it the Goosebumps assholes. Like
the goose.
Yeah. Oh man, but no, that would be cool. Just to get these guys on would be really cool. Hey,
be cool.
Dan, Matt, what do you got? Number 3.
My number 3 is the haunted mask. We briefly touched on it earlier, but I think the moment that like seals the deal for me for that episode is truly Catherine Long screaming into the mirror. It's just this like such raw, like when the shopkeeper turns around and says, "This face is your face now." It's just like this blood curdling raw moment that feels so adult for like a kids program.
It's our best acting moment of the series.
It is, and it's it's the first episode. It was premiered at night, a couple of days before Halloween, and God, it's just there's just all the things that we've already said about it. But I think just as a whole, the mask is so scary. The other masks, just seeing those other 6 masks, like those masks are terrifying. There's a scary adult there as well who's like, literally shaking this young girl. There's the Noah in the mask at the end looks terrifying. It's just across the board, just dark, scary, solid, terrifying episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
Catherine won an award for that too. Gemini Award, I think. back in the day.
I think so. Well, and that's the thing too, is that you get so scared by it, especially when she like screams in her face in the mirror, is because you care so much about that character. It's like, I don't want anything bad to happen to her. She just wanted to, you know, you're like, she just wanted to like not be so scared anymore, and now this is like her punishment for it. So it's like
a lesson.
It's like, no, I don't want anything bad to happen to her. So you feel bad, you feel scared, but you feel like really, really upset for her.
And you feel the panic from her as well when she's like, you know, those eyes in the mirror. Those are my eyes.
Yeah, it's like, where are my eyes? Like, where am I? It's like, it literally comes into like a where am I sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just so good.
Mm-hmm. We should go around in a circle and do our best Catherine Long scream.
We shouldn't.
Put us on the spot.
Number 3 is The Girl Who Cried Monster. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I have much to add that we haven't already discussed. I mean, just this kid/cricket eating librarian chasing you through the library. I think there's great monster effects, body horror kind of things happening there. Just like the eyes, his eyes in general, like poking out, and the dark, nasty twist at the end, Mr. Mormon showing up, and that element of real world scary that we've already talked about, but like, you know, it almost feels like there's this predator man who's showing up at a little kid's house, which is very like, crosses a lot of lines and breaks a lot of rules, kind of how things are supposed to be. I think that's another one I love to show people as well, because it's just so nasty and wild, and I love how it just goes for it. It also is one of those episodes that has a little bit of everything in it. There are campy elements, the score is great, but it also, some of it's really bone-chilling, and you got a great twist overall. So that's my number 3 for Scariest TV episode.
Yeah.
Mom, is Dad still polishing the sawed-off shotgun?
Yeah.
It was Jack
cleaning his rifle.
Yeah.
Did the soundtrack, Jack Lenz, because we interviewed him years ago on my old channel, and he even said to this day he doesn't know how that episode got aired. He said when he's eating the tarantula and all, he's like, I don't know how they got away with
right.
rating.
Oh, it's so
What's hanging out of his mouth? It's like twitching and all that in his mouth, and then it's terrible. It's horrible.
It was Alan Dassett's favorite episode. He said Girl Who Cried Monster. That was the first one they shot, like actually shot.
Oh, really?
I think it was first in the production schedule. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
Yeah, they did. They killed it.
Kevin started off with a bang. Definitely. Absolutely.
They definitely didn't have it worked out yet, the tone. So that being the first episode totally makes sense.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. My number 2, we already discussed it, but my number 2 is Welcome to Deadhouse, and I think it just goes back to what I said about Scarecrow. In fact, honestly, the more I think about it, all of my episodes have that sort of isolationist feeling to it. Just the feeling of being alone, like cut off from the rest of the world, and then having to come up against a supernatural force or being or creature is just a really terrifying concept for me. But Welcome to Deadhouse is so scary, because not only are you like completely cut off from the rest of the world, but you're in a town where every single person is not only like a threat, but they are legitimately plotting against you every single moment. Like, that is all they are there to do, is to attack you when they get the chance. And the fact of people being in your house, mm-hmm. like, whether it be like just
while you're sleeping,
while you're sleeping, in your closet, in your walls, like just punching through the drywall and being like,
they're the impatient ones. Like, because honestly, you know, obviously he's trying to say, look, we have to go all at one time. We can't just pounce on them whenever we want. But they're the zombies that are like,
look at me, I don't have time. I need to feed now. Like,
yeah, they're the ones that are like impatient. No, I'm going in there. And hey, if I'm going in there on my own, I get to feed on 5 people, like, or 4 or 5 people all together. You know, I don't have to. You know?
And the ending, when they're like descending on the house, like, yeah, you see like the silhouettes of them like on like clawing on the windows. There's that one shot where the mom pulls open the curtain, and it's just the one being like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
The one that's like bursting through like the wall, like I think it was Scott Wickware, who just like burst through the walls like, no speeches, Mayor, I'm starving.
Oh, that was perfect.
He told that story about not being able to get through on the first try. So he had to like Hulk it and go all like Kool-Aid Man through that wall. Because he said, like, "Oh yeah, no, it'll break." Yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, that did not break easy."
Yeah, you can just see there's a lot of resistance.
Yeah, I guess there was a lot more resistance than he thought, but it's funny. I think he's a good one. See, he was in 3 different really good episodes. Well, Attack of the Mutants a kind of a debatable one, but his character was great.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also
he played the Haunted Mask in the Haunted Mask 2, which I never knew until later.
I didn't know that until I listened to the podcast.
Yeah. Like I thought for the longest time before we started this podcast, like it was just the Colin Fox who played the shopkeeper in the mask. Yeah. So when I looked up and it was Scott Whitwer, I was like, no way. And then like Mask Mutant with Haunted Mask, and he was in Welcome to Dead House.
Yeah, and then you had Amos Crowley doing the voice of Larry in My Harris Adventure. It wasn't even so the actor that played Harry Larry.
Weird.
It wasn't his voice for the entire episode.
But once you know that, you can't unhear it. Like every time I watch that episode now, I'm like, that's just Amos. That's Chuck.
It's crazy. What was wrong with the guy's voice that they had to change it? I want to know.
Maybe he was going through puberty or something, and his voice was cracking. I don't know.
Oh man,
but
possibly.
No, Welcome to Dead House is so creepy, and it ends creepy because you don't know. It shows that there are still some of them like alive. Like most of them, perished, but they're still out there. Like Mr. Dawes, and being like, "I'm hungry." Like that is horrifying right there. And then their dog is dead and is in the car with them. And you don't know, maybe Petey attacks them.
That ending wasn't super scary of that part. Like when they just did a color change on the dog, I was just like, okay.
I don't know. Just, the color change is weird, but just the fact that your dog is dead and now it's in the car with you, like, you don't know what's going to happen. So.
Oh, you know what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I know what's going to happen. So that's
that dog ain't waiting. He ain't waiting for the mayor to tell him to go ahead and feed. He's feeding.
Yeah, and dogs aren't gentle. They'll just rip your ass to shreds. Anyway, Welcome to Dead House is my number 2. I just think it's a really great atmospheric episode. I love zombies. This is Goosebumps doing zombies, and it just works. I really think it does. It was a great one. So my number 2. Bjorn?
All right, so my number 2 is The Girl Who Cried Monster. And I know we've all kind of said what we want to say about it already. I'm like, what more is there to say? But
I kind of wondered when we got down to the end how many would cross over that we've already talked about. Because these are so iconic, you cannot have them on the list.
Yeah. In terms of the scare, but I can give you one story. These 2 already know, unless you guys probably have already heard it, but
tell us.
So that episode never came out on VHS, right? It was unless you caught it on TV or you taped it, which my mother did because she knew how much I loved Goosebumps. I watched it with my brother. He was absolutely traumatized by it. He hated it so much that he destroyed my tape. And I had no other chance to watch it again because I was like, who knows when they're going to air that one again? Because back then it was very different. So he actually took the tape out. He pulled all the tape out of it. He was that mad and he just smashed it. And I was just like, and I cried because I was so upset knowing I will never get to watch The Girl Who Cried Monster again until they either officially release it and I think at this point DVDs were only just coming out or unless they do a DVD release. So yeah, he was absolutely traumatized by it. So, and the fact that it scared him that much, I would like to think how many other kids it terrified.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Number 2 on my list, 100%. So kind of a short answer, but I thought at least I can give a little something different. Number 2 is definitely The Girl Who Cried Monster.
Yep.
A good one.
Creepy.
Nick?
That's a good one. I kind of went out of the realm to think about the concept more than what I guess would be scary, but Welcome to Camp Nightmare, I think number 2 for me. And that's mostly due to the fact that you're going to what's a normal camp in your mind. But the fact is, like, and you make friends, things are getting real creepy. Like, what's up with this Uncle Al character? Like, he's really chill one minute, and then the next minute, like a flip of the switch, dude is creepy as all get out. But the fact that your friends just keep disappearing, and like everybody's like, I don't know any Colin or Jay, and you're just like, what? Mm-hmm. Bitch, we're here yesterday. I was like, hey, remember that guy who got bit by the snake? And you were like, oh, you're cool, bro. That guy. Yeah.
Well, he even says he's like, well, yeah, he's even like, oh yeah, the snake bite kid. He's like, yeah, he's like, don't you worry about that kind of stuff, Billy. He was like, you're here to have fun. So it's like, even if he doesn't explicitly say, I don't know what you're talking about, it's just kind of like, don't worry about that. Like, it's like, but he got bit by a snake. I'm like, where is he? So it's, yeah, it's like that sort of thing.
And then just everybody's going missing, and then he just ends up alone, and then later being told, hey, we're gonna go hunt down this girl who ran away from camp. Wow. That was kind of messed up. Here's your, crossbow and your tranquilizer, which of course was different in the book, but they're not going to get away with that on a TV show for kids. But the whole concept was really amazing, and I felt more of like a psychological thriller in a way, with everybody who keeps disappearing, and the camp counselors not knowing like what he's talking about, saying up and down, there was no camper by that name. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, in the background, because you have to keep in mind about Saber and the fact that you were chased by him at that one time, so it's still out there. I don't know, it was a really, really interesting concept, because as a kid, I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, went to camp, or at least went camping. So you at least can get the sense of danger from being in the woods at night anyway. So welcome to Camp
Everyone
Nightmare,
was such dicks in that episode. Everyone was absolute dicks.
It's scarier.
but they played it so well, and I mean, that's my favorite Goosebumps episode of all time. Like, not the scariest, but it's my favorite Goosebumps episode. It's my most watched. I love it so much. I love everyone, and I think Billy is like the most heroic character in the entire Goosebump. You know what I mean? He's a hero. He really is. Like, he just stands up to everyone. He's like, no, I'm not taking this shit.
I don't see any other Goosebumps protagonists pointing crossbows at anybody.
That's what I mean. Like, I love it.
I love it so much. The trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's such a great episode. I'm glad it was on your list.
Yeah. He's like, put down that gun. He was like, I won't. Yeah, that's a good one. Dan and Matt?
I'm literally reading the book, right? I just was reading it earlier today. It's what's in my brain right now, so I love it.
Great book.
On the list.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is The Girl Who Cried Monster. Yeah.
I already have it.
That's right. So yeah, Girl Who Cried Monster.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It's a good one.
About it, but,
it's undoubtedly one of the creepiest and best episodes that the show ever did. So
yeah,
I mean, even down to the annoying like little brother with that scream that could just
handy dude.
Here's your ears. Oh my god! Like, there's not very many kid actors in this show that like I wanted to just like throw a punch when I was a kid. I was like, oh my god, it's like this kid's annoying as crap, and then that scream, you're just like
annoying.
You just want to like judo chop to the neck, boy.
The Goosebumps crew does not endorse harm to children.
You were a kid back then, so it's okay.
Disagree.
You were a kid back then.
Because it's also the sister from Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Tara the
Terrible.
Yeah, Tara. Tara, I would say probably is the one that deserved it.
My number 2 is The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. I know we talked about it quite a bit, but the one thing that really scared me about it as a kid growing up was that like the parents like get involved, like where there's a sequence where like the werewolf's like chasing sister and mom, and they're like in the barn, and like a lot of times in these episodes it's just like the kids are dealing with the thing and the parents don't believe them. And this one, I mean, at the end of the episode, dad's like, well, we don't really know what happened, but like I
I remember thinking like this is a real thrill when I was watching as a kid, because I was like, oh my gosh, like they're chasing the mom too. The mom sees that it's a werewolf, you know what I mean? And I always wanted things to be way scarier as a kid. And I remember this episode matching the level of fear that I was hoping Goosebumps would reach. Just like the chase sequences and all the jump scare at the end. I think that the acting is really good. And yeah, I think it's an all-around really terrifying episode. It's another one I like to show people.
It's one of those episodes that I feel like the Haunted Mask in a way. It doesn't necessarily feel like you're watching a TV show for kids.
True.
Right.
It feels like a 40 minutes of.
And we have the hermit being like, "You took my family away," and like his thing, like,
yeah, you get gets kidnapped for a while. Like it feels very. It just feels like a horror. It's like a made-for-TV horror movie.
Adult, and the directing's good, the writing's good. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And I have to echo
the concept of the hermit, like saying, even the dad's like, he lost his family some time back, and ever since then he's been a little strange.
Yeah.
But like the whole concept, like when he actually like breaks down, when he thinks he has the werewolf in that net, he's like, "Who took my wife and children?"
Yeah.
Like you feel so bad. You're like, oh my God, bro. And then he still doesn't get his revenge after he realizes it's a deer. And he's like, "Run, boy." He's like, "No, don't do it." And sure enough, werewolf just kills him too. He didn't get his revenge all those years out in the woods trying to hunt down this werewolf.
Dark.
Just to abruptly end with his death because he decided to save the young boy instead. Telling him to run. And
it's like a big arc of a story too, which is great.
Yeah, and I have to echo all of that because my number one is the Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
Oh, yay! Hey, this is the big one.
You gotta do it like Will. No, just like that. Yeah. It's, like, it's almost like he's trying to kiss the air. It's like, like that. No, I gotta echo all that. Werewolf of Fever Swamp is the scariest episode for me because, again, you go back to the isolationist thing, but a swamp is like you don't know what's lurking in there. They're like, there could be like alligators, there could be wolves in there, and this is a ferocious episode. Like there are no wolves in it. You guys are there's like you two are scientists. You should know that that's not true. But this is a ferocious episode. Like this is a Goosebumps monster. This isn't like a mummy or a zombie or like something like that. Like something you could probably get away from pretty quickly. This is a fast fuck werewolf. Like if it is like if you're in its sights, you run and you don't look back. And that chase scene at the end when Emily is being chased by the werewolf, first of all, amazing score. Like that, like riffing on the guitar when the chase is going on really adds to the tension. And it's fast. Like you gotta run. Yeah. And then when they like lock themselves in the shed.
Effect for the werewolf too was different than a typical werewolf you'd see in movies. I mean, they try to typically obviously make it sound like a wolf, which makes sense. I don't really know what they used to try to make the sound of this werewolf. I mean, you obviously had the howling and stuff when they showed the moon, and they try to make the basically kind of like in the clouds, the cover in the same shape of Tim Jacobus's cover for the book. I noticed, but. Yeah, I don't know what they used for the werewolf, but it was really worked like, for that atmosphere.
It's very monstrous. Like it's not animalistic in terms of like an actual wolf. It's very much like a monster like kind of sound, and it's really really good. It's just, and there's so much like implied death in this episode because you have like deer getting mauled to death. You have the rabbit.
The bunny.
Yeah, the bunny that's like Emily finds and then realizes it's like just torn to shreds, and then they're dissecting it afterwards. And then just like the hermit like just gets mauled to death. And even I mean just the idea that Will is the werewolf is really sad because one thing I realized is that like did he kill his family? Like because there's no.
They implied it.
I never thought about that.
I think they imply it because he goes. Grady goes inside his house and just sees the whole thing is just ransacked.
It's true.
But it's like, if he's living here with his parents, he probably killed his parents. And honestly, if Grady is like the new werewolf that the ending implies, it's like, watch out, you know, mom, dad, and sister.
He'll
like
probably kill his family.
Yeah, that's a terrifying thought. Even the shot at the end of like Will's werewolf skeleton just like emerging from the swamp.
Yeah.
So
That was cool.
And yeah, like even I just remember the scene of when the moon is like hidden by the clouds and he's like halfway transformed and he's just like grunting in pain and he's like, get away. He's like, I don't want to hurt you. I can't control myself. He's like, there's got to be something we can do. He's like, no, like leave, get out of here. And it's terrifying. It is a terrifying concept. Like, and again, just like a swamp where you could easily get lost in like any neck of the woods, is terrifying. It's a terrifying sort of episode. It's just one I remember sticking with me the most as a kid, but it was always the one I was like the most enthralled with too. Like I just like, even if I was scared, I just couldn't stop watching it. Yeah. Like I just had to know what happens next.
Yeah.
And that's what a great horror movie should do. It should scare you, but it's not like, but you also, it's like the hook that like reels you in. So, yeah.
I believe I mentioned it before, but I really wish that particular book got a sequel. Of all the books that could get a sequel, that one should have got one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I absolutely loved it, and I would have loved to seen like a sequel episode even that followed Grady later.
Yeah.
Or even like maybe a prequel origin story to Will would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be like the Goosebumps equivalent of Wicked.
Family. You sure you didn't want Chicken too? Are you sure you didn't want Chicken too?
Well, they never made an episode of Chicken, unfortunately. Otherwise, that would be my number one.
They should have, they should have made Chicken an episode, and then they should have made 5 sequels.
Monster Blood got that many, so why not Chicken?
Just chicken, and then just add chicken to it.
just keep adding like 15 times.
Chicken, the last feather. I don't know.
The Last Supper.
Well, we said they should have done a Thanksgiving version of the book and called it Turkey.
No, this ending was, the sequel should have been Pig.
Yeah.
That's right.
One more thing I will say, this is not related to the episode, but I just have to give special shout out to the Goosebumps graphics adaptation of Werewolf of Fever Swamp. That stuck with me, the graphic novel adaptation.
Yes.
That stuck with me because I saw that when I was a kid, and I remember there's the panel where he actually chomps into his shoulder, into Grady's shoulder, and you just see the blood like just leaking out. Is graphic, no pun intended, for
graphic novel, man.
But yeah, if anyone in our audience hasn't seen the Goosebumps graphic novels, check that one out at least.
Great.
That and Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, like that book had, those two adaptations were so good. Creepy Creatures, the first one, was a great graphic novel, so check it out. But yeah, Werewolf of Fever Swamp's my number one. I think it's the scariest episode of the show.
Great.
Bjorn?
Mm-hmm. So my number one has got to be Go Eat Worms. No.
I was gonna say you better be.
It's not. No.
Better get a really good explanation.
No.
Oh my god.
Well, you actually thought it was for a second.
For a second, I was like, okay.
Giant phallus worms.
No.
Yep. Giant penis
my favorite
worm.
is Welcome to Dead House. In terms of most creepiest episodes. Again, it's the imagery, it's the soundtrack, it's the, people are breaking into my house, it's all of that. Like what got me the most was just the scenes when she would look out her window and she saw the neighbors just staring at her, and you'd have that camera pan on the face, and then the shutters would just close. But their hands are nowhere near to shut the curtains. It's almost like they've shut on their own.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's just creepy. But you do see the one when they're walking in the actual street and you see the guy just closing the curtains. And that kind of stuff just really stuck with me. And let's put it this way. It is the one Goosebumps VHS that I never got out again to rent at the store. I rented it once and that was it because I couldn't do it again. It scared me so much that it was the one episode that I actually had to go sleep with my parents that night.
Wow.
Okay?
I love that.
Got me. Mm-hmm. It was horrifying. And I think it was.
I would make Scott and Marilyn proud.
Yep. Yeah, Scott and Marilyn, you guys did a terrific job of terrifying me as a kid. It was, I don't know, and
Ian.
Yeah, and like
Yeah, Ian's part was
one thing that Ian Clark, my dad, I remember him saying, long before he passed, we watched it because he never actually watched it, and he even said, R.L. Stine really knew how to freak kids out. That was one of the things he said after watching that episode. So I was like, for him to say that, I was like, okay, this episode is terrifying. It's scary. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it really was. Like, I don't know how that one, made it through, like, for GB7 rating. I really don't know. Like,
really scary.
They found a way.
It's a rated GB7. Because it may be too spooky for children under 7.
For like young kids, and then you've got M, which is M15 plus. So you got to be 15 to watch it. The TV series, after it got re-released on DVD, it's now M15. It's no longer PG. So they've gone back and reviewed it again, and yeah, it's now an M15 rating in Australia for the Goosebumps DVDs. So
yeah, well, and that episode was prime time. That was on Fox at night, and as well as Werewolf of Fever Swamp. So it's like there's a pattern there. Is like the darkest, most violent episodes were in prime time, and probably for a reason, because they probably couldn't be watched on Saturday mornings, and kids wouldn't, be having nightmares.
It probably should have been watched during the day, apparently.
Oh, I think it had the most chilling and eerie soundtrack too. Welcome to Deadhouse. It was so weird.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, sometimes it would just be like it wasn't even music. You would just hear like weird sounds, like like, and it was just like, I don't know. It was very. It made me feel kind of like, like off in a way when I'd be watching. And anytime they would show that wreath with the score, that was creepy. And that wasn't even in the book. But
it's not a way to make a wreath scary. Think about that.
They did. They made it creepy. And I never rented the VHS after the first time. That was it.
Oh.
Once. It was Night Living Dummy 3 on VHS. 50 copies. I am OCD compulsive, okay? When it comes to that I don't know what it is, okay? I love me boy Slappy. Ginger Slappy was the greatest.
I agree.
Nick, what do you got? What's your number one?
Number one, Stay Out of the Basement.
Yes!
I find that episode to be probably the creepiest one of all of them, for reasons we mentioned earlier. But at the same time, I mean, how creepy is it? Like, your dad's acting weird. He no longer calls you princess. I always hated it when my dad stopped calling me princess. I know for a fact that would piss me off. So I'm with Margaret on that one. And, the whole concept is just like, your mom doesn't believe you. Oh, he's just stressed from work. But yeah, when he took the phone away from her, when you're seeing plants grow out of his head, when he's bleeding green and trying to make you eat this, but meanwhile he's over the sink eating plant food.
I was gonna say
shoveling it in his face.
There's so many red flags in this, but you're kids, so what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? It's like, what do we do? Mom's not believing us. She's not even home. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Dr. Merrick shows up, and next thing you know, like, we didn't see him leave. Are you questioning me, Margaret? It's like,
yeah.
All right, Dad, I'm sorry.
Oh, we haven't brought up the worms in the bed.
And the fact that apparently Dad likes to sleep on a bed of worms.
I'm not afraid of worms at all, but that bed being just covered in all those crawling worms is
like pulsating.
Oh yeah, it's like just like throbbing up and down, like, because there's so many worms.
It's just throbbing. Like, it's a living.
Oh, did they get that right? But the Go Eat Worms episode, they couldn't get any of that.
Because that story sucks.
One little shot of worms was.
They used their entire worm budget for Stay Out of the Basement. Okay,
those are real worms. Alan told us so. It was worm wrangler on set.
Yeah, there's actually a worm wrangler. That's a job.
So
sounds like a
weird.
job in the porn industry, but it's a job in the film industry. That's not porn related, apparently.
Times.
Who knew?
Oh, yeah, who knew?
Catherine Long had to eat worms. Apparently they needed worms a lot in Goosebumps.
Yep. Worms are creepy.
Catherine Long sandwich.
Yeah.
Stay out of the basement.
12 times. Don't forget
12
that.
times
She
biting
bit
into a
that worm 12 times.
Legend.
The fact that one exploded too, like when she told me that, I about gagged, man. I was just like, I was like, okay, I could bite into a
totally
worm,
forgot
but
about that.
The explosion part, that's gonna stick with me forever. But yeah, no, stay out of the basement, man. I mean, I don't know. There's something about that. And then when the very end, when you don't know which one's your dad, one looks more like a plant than the actual one that is a plant at this point. So you're just like, what should I do? Me personally, I would have sprayed both. Just saying. Yeah. Because I don't think that this weed killer is really going to affect a human like that. So you're just going to be like, spray.
I think it is
there. So it's clearly you.
Yeah. I think it is a little poisonous, though, isn't it? Like, it probably won't kill you, but it will probably give you a pretty nasty rash. I think so, at least.
So a little spider bite. Potentially won't kill you, but, just give you a little rash.
Yeah,
However,
just have the spider bite you. What'll happen? What's
plant
will happen?
So, plus the ending, I just thought it was kind of creepy. So it's like all the flowers are now apparently, I'm your father. I'm your real father. It's like, I thought it was funny more than scary, but...
You know what I think would have been a better ending?
I think it would have been scarier if the Margaret plant made it out and then replaced her. I thought that would have been a better ending, personally.
I was just about to say that. I think that would have been a better ending, is that she turns around and all of a sudden her clone is right there and just like grab her and the episode ends like that.
It could have even been like, they go, I think you've got a nosebleed, and then she does this, but it's like green or something. Something subtle.
Yeah. Something to show, because they showed her plant version, obviously when it opened up, like it's her because she cut her hand earlier. Mm-hmm. So it would have totally made sense if that would have been the ending. I would have rather much had that than some like
taking flowers,
sunflowers
being like, I'm your dad. I'm your real father.
Almost like the ending of Let's Get Invisible, where he finds out that his brother is the mirror version, and it's just like like that, you know what I mean? So it's like, wait a minute, you're not what like that sort of thing.
What a switch.
Would have built up. It seemed like they were building that up because she cuts herself, and then you see the plant, but then that just doesn't come back into play. I feel like it would have been a better ending.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great one though. That's my favorite.
Great, yeah, fantastic episode.
Absolutely.
My number one is The Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
Yeah.
Swamp. And one of the reasons why is Matthew and I got to meet years and years ago. Got to meet Deborah Forte, who's one of the producers of the TV show, and we were absolutely like geeking out over her. Like, really, just couldn't believe that we got to meet her. And she said that Werewolf Fever Swamp was the scariest episode that they made, and she said she couldn't believe that it made it to air because she thought it was too scary. And that has stuck with me, and I love that she thought that. And I agree. I think it's a horror movie, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like one of those
100%.
like video store VHS tapes that you would find, like just a random movie that's like really dark and scary and gritty. Like, that's just what the feeling of that episode is. I'm glad she feels the same. She's someone we want to get on the podcast someday. But
I hope that happens.
Yeah, I've been trying to find her.
Yep.
Matthew, what's your number one? My number one is The Haunted Mask. I gotta say, we've already talked about it, but it comes down to, for me, the scariest moment in Goosebumps, I feel like, history is her shriek into the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
When it's so like animalistic and primal and just pure terror, that moment. I remember watching that and feeling like my blood, like my spine tingle and like my blood go cold. I remember thinking like, oh, this is very, very, very scary. Mm-hmm. Not to mention everything about the episode, but
I also do think it's the best episode, and it's also my favorite episode, so maybe I'm muddying it up a little bit, but I do think it's so bone chilling. I even had I had some people over last year to watch Goosebumps episodes, and my friend brought her girlfriend, now her fiance, but she brought her girlfriend, and she was like, this woman, Celeste, who I love Celeste, I love you so much, but Celeste came over and was like, so I don't want to watch anything too scary, but it's Goosebumps and we should be okay, right? And I was like, and we were 10 minutes into the Haunted Mask, and she was like, and this is like a grown, like, I think she's 30, she was like, I'm sorry, I have to leave. I can't watch any more of this. Like, she was that scared by watching. This is last year. A 30-year-old was so scared of the Haunted Mask that she had to leave. So I think it's a testament of how creepy and scary it is.
Mm-hmm. That first season was built different. I'm telling you, it was like, it was just shot so well. The score was done so well, and it just had that eerie nature to almost every single episode. But the Haunted Mask, it didn't crack my top 5, but I won't deny that it certainly is that, and The Girl Who Cried Monster are certainly creepy episodes, and funny enough, they were among the first. So, but the Haunted Mask is just terrifying in those very moments, and it's because you feel for that character, and you don't want anything bad to happen for you get invested in her journey. So I totally agree. Absolutely.
It feels the most like serious, if that makes sense. I mean, I guess there's some campy elements too, but there's very little, because the acting is so dropped in and the storytelling is so smart. It feels the most like it demands you to take it seriously, and the scares seem more, the stakes seem higher somehow in that episode.
Mm-hmm. It has a lot more. I would say it has like gravitas to it. Funny enough, even when we talked with Catherine, she was like, I mean, we were pouring our hearts out on just like how deep we thought this episode was, and I'll never forget. She was like, oh, "I never thought of that. We were just doing this because it was fun."
For us, it's this perfect deep piece of art that's like,
Mm-hmm. Well, anytime anybody talks about Goosebumps, they have to talk about the Haunted Mask. Like, every time I see a video essay or a review of Goosebumps, they always have to bring up how great the Haunted Mask is. And it's a testament to, again, how great that episode is, because it was just done so well. It was the perfect episode to start off with. And, I totally agree with that. It's a good number 1 pick. All these picks were pretty interesting.
Yeah, they were great. Yes.
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting to see on the outside perspective. Because, like I said, I thought Bjorn's number 1 was definitely going to be Night of the Living Dummy 2. That was kind of surprising. And then I like hearing other takes on other episodes, maybe stuff that I didn't even think about, thinking of it in that aspect. Because I definitely try to look at every episode for this particular episode we're doing right now to make a unique list and not just choose the Haunted Mask for my personal self, because I totally would have. And it's just, I love it too much. Like I said, when I was a kid, I wasn't scared, but I was just like, oh my God, I need that mask. Why she don't want it no more? I was like, I'll totally take it. You're not unloved here. Come on over.
I'll gladly look like a ghoul for the rest of my life.
I couldn't even like look at it as scary in my eyes. So it's really interesting to hear other people's take on the Haunted Mask and how it was actually scary to them, let alone someone who, as a full-grown adult looking at that and they've never seen it before and finding that actually scary. So warms my black heart to hear that.
I feel like some of my takeaways from today are I've seen all the episodes a lot, but I want to revisit, spend more time with Piano Lessons Can Be Murder and Don't Wake Mummy, because I feel like it's you telling the story about showing a friend an episode a couple months ago. A friend and I wanted to watch a Goosebumps episode. We put on Piano Lessons Can Be Murder. Brandon? And I was like, oh, this one will be fun and easy. And he was very, again, 30-year-old man, very, very scared, and was like looking at me like, oh, and I was like, yeah, this is fine. And I didn't realize that, we're desensitized to it. All of us have seen these episodes hundreds of times, and it was exactly what you were saying, Bjorn, about the ghost of the woman coming out of the school. And I was like, oh yeah, this must be really scary for people that
haven't seen it before,
or don't know what's coming,
or don't know what's happening. You know, like I love that it pops
right.
up, especially not just for kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very underrated. I think it's one of the most. If we did a top 5 most underrated episodes, like that's what number 1 or 2. Like it's up there. Like you know, especially if
it's
you're
definitely up there.
Shorter episodes, at 22-minute, episodes. Like that one is easily up there because it's just I love it so much. And then I've had so many people tell me like my best friend's younger brother had to go to therapy because of Slappy. Therapy. He was that scared of it. Yeah. And because some people just have.
I had to go because of My Hairiest Adventure, so I understand.
But you know what I mean? Like some people just have phobias of puppets in general, and putting that on for a kid that does have a phobia of a puppet at like age 7, or that's going to send them. And then one of the girls I work with, she said I hated that fucking dummy like as a kid.
Yeah.
I guess we all have that our preference of what we're afraid of, and and some people told me the headless ghost freaked them out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is reading too much into it, but Goosebumps didn't fuck around. Like that's the thing. It's like it's a kid's show, but
for network television, even though a lot of people compare that and Are You Afraid of the Dark, a really good point was made that Are You Afraid of the Dark had the benefit of being on cable.
Oh yeah.
So they could get away with a little bit more stuff. So that's why you get things like Tale Dead Man's Float with like this giant blood monster basically coming out of the pool, and the Ghastly Grinner basically being like a messed up version of their version of the Joker, who's
also Haunting Hour. Haunting Hour was also on a cable network, and Haunting Hour, honestly, that is a surprise that it aired on a kids network, because that show was
dark. That show is dark.
Oh my god, it's like that was like the last kid show I felt like anthology horror kid show that I feel really had some gonads. Like it was just like, fuck the kids, we're gonna do whatever we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Goosebumps like really just did what it wanted to do. Like it could be scary, and there are many other episodes that we didn't bring up today, but they have their scary moments as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think Perfect School is a pretty creepy episode. Werewolf Skin is a creepy episode. As we mentioned with like My Best Friend's Invisible, there's some episodes that have some really scary endings, like that one. So it's just a matter of like, if you get through all the campiness, like you can find like the scary stuff in there, and it's always worth a look. Anytime anybody ever is like, I should check out that show, I'm like, do it. Like, check it out. It is a really fun time. And to be honest, I mean, hearing your guys' list, I know we all had our own opinions, but hearing your guys' list, like, really kind of put into perspective some of those other episodes too. But absolutely. And yeah, I'm just glad that we could walk away knowing that Bjorn's number 1 is not actually Go Eat Worms. The only thing scary about that episode is how bad it is.
It's weird because it's like it's so bad, but like there's like one scene in the whole episode that was good, and it was the scene where he's sleeping and the worms are just crawling all over him, and
just on his face,
under that pillow, and the worms are like on his face.
His face into that worm pillow.
Yeah,
like great scene out of the whole episode. Do you know what I mean? It's like that one scene. I'm like, I don't know. It's like Nick said, maybe the whole budget was in that one scene.
Yeah. I will say Ghost Beach got creepy.
Ghost Beach has dog eating.
Yep. And Skeleton Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Ghost Beach is the scary part was the ending. It's like, because your parents just sent you apparently to these old people who are dead.
Your cousins. It's like, is that how it? Quote JonTron is like, is that how it works?
How old are your cousins?
They're old cousins. Dead. Yeah. Our 2 cousins twice remodeled. Removed, Jerry. Removed.
Speaking of JonTron, I will never forget where they're like, oh, I've got some reading to do. And then she's like, oh, I'll help. And then he's like, excuse me, you'll help?
But like,
John,
the most
quick,
weirdest.
I need your help reading this, or I won't be able to do it in time. He's like, I want to find where in this classic book series R.L. Stine said he wanted the show to be written by a bunch of chimpanzees. God, I love that video so much.
Jontron's great.
Yeah.
You know, and didn't he talk about an old story?
No, he didn't. Honestly, I kind of wish he didn't. I wish he did more videos on Goosebumps.
Talk about it.
Those 3 episodes, Don't Go to Sleep, My Harriest Adventure, and Ghost Beach. But I'm like, dude, you could get a lot more gold out of some of these other ones, dude. I'm telling you.
It's iconic.
That episode has like the most hilarious concept to me, and I will always say that, because the fact that it's just like your aunt pimping you out to her Golden Girls, making you old, it just cracks me up. It's like, wow, okay. Like,
all right,
really
I have one last throw-in question. What do you guys think is the least scary Goosebumps episode? Because I honestly would say An Old Story. That episode is not scary to me.
The Barking Ghost drives me crazy.
Barking Ghost makes me infuriated.
Let me think.
Good answer. It's a good answer.
It's like I have a hate relationship with that book, and like that book because the cover art is beautiful. Tim did such a great job with that book cover.
It comes right after Night of the Living Dummy 2, where you're like, things are getting good, and then it's Barking Ghost. You're like, this is supposed to be good. I want this to be great.
A book that even R.L. Stine himself says he hates.
It's up there for me of least scary.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at a list right now because I'm trying to think, is there anything I'm forgetting?
Click is honestly just funny to me. I just think that's a funny episode. It's not really that creepy.
Yeah, Click is not super scary.
What's another one?
I would say least scary. What might be Click? I mean, Click wasn't scary.
Yeah, Click's not scary. You're right. Click might actually be it.
Yeah, it might be.
I don't think Bad Hair Day is that scary either. I mean, not really.
Yeah, Bad Hair Day's not super. It's not scary either. But there is like sort of at least a villain character.
Yeah, like an angry.
Right. Yeah. But he's sort of like he's sort of like channeling Jim Carrey in his performance.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what it's like not to eat, to just eat lettuce and carrots. No ranch, just lettuce and carrots. Yeah, I'm bitter.
His name was El Sidney, but it's just a peso in the book. I was like,
normally I only use uno rabito. That's great. Man. But that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. Daniel, Matthew, thank you both for joining us and talking some Goosebumps with us. It was truly an honor. We're glad to have you guys.
What a total blast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'd be totally happy to have you guys back on if ever you're interested. So
We're interested.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll bring you guys back on because this was awesome. Where can our audience find you?
You can listen to our podcast as well on anywhere you get podcasts. Welcome to Deadcast, the Goosebumps podcast. We go through all the books and episodes and just break them down individually. But you can just find me on Instagram at Daniel X Montgomery. I made a movie that's called The Jessica Cabin.
It's brilliant.
That the main reason I bring it up is I directed, wrote, and starred in it. But when I was doing this, helping figure out what the score was, I said to our composer, I want adult Goosebumps. That's what I want for this score. I want it to feel like an adult, like the TV show. It's a bump up to adult. So if that sounds appealing to you, watch it on Prime Video. It's there right now.
You should watch it. It's short. It's scary. It's funny. Daniel's brilliant.
Thank you, Matthew.
So good. My Instagram is Matthew_Scott_Montgomery. I also have a horror movie that I wrote and I'm starring in that's coming out soon. We keep getting good news, which delays it coming out. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but I promise it'll be worth the wait. It's called Howdy Neighbor. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'll be posting obnoxiously about that as soon as I can speak of what's happening with it. And I think I'm going to watch The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight tonight. I think I'm going to watch Click. No.
No, I'm gonna marathon Jack-o'-lantern, Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and Headless Ghost because I'm just in a hankering for all three of those right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will make sure to leave links to Daniel and Matthew's social medias and the links to both their movies in the description below. Check them out if you can. Like I said, you could watch Jesse Cabinet on streaming right now, so go check it out. Show the support. They really, really do deserve it. And check out Welcome to Deadcast. They were doing the Goosebumps podcast before we were, so you can say that maybe we're ripping them off a little bit, but...
I'm so happy and honored to be a guest on this show.
Can't tell you how much we love this podcast.
And please have us back.
Yep, absolutely. We'll already be planning some probably by the time this episode ends. So we'll definitely make it happen. So check them out if you can. And as always, make sure you also check out Bjorn and Nick at Goosebumps Saucy Fan and Sean respectively on their social medias and their YouTubes. And as always, if you like today's episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, make sure you leave a like and comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification. Follow us on our audio platforms and social medias. All those links are going to be in the description below. We'll have a brand new episode for you next week. But until then, this has been the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. And from all of us here, we want to wish you all to take care, stay safe, and have a very scary day.